Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it. Coaches, the JAMODI podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here.
You can take this a few different ways as far as standards and pillars of your program, because you have the head coaching experience that you've done in different schools, but also as an assistant AD, you have your entire program there. So maybe it's a combination or just some things that you've done in the past. What are those standards and pillars of your program?
Well, when I was coaching, the pillars that I came across, and this was really once I got to New Caney, that my assistant coach at the time was Michael Shoney. He had worked for Coach Jakovich at North Texas before he went to SMU, and it was really helpful for me from a professional standpoint, learning and developing as a head coach and just as a coach in general. But we really dug into and found the Virginia pillars that they used for their men's basketball team and adapted them to ours. And kind of our philosophy was to choose 5 pillars, one for each day of the school week that we had the kids that we would cover. And so the first day of the week was humility. And I always love Coach Bennett's quote on that. I don't know exactly where he got it from, but humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. And then Tuesday, so that would always be Monday. Tuesday was passion or competition. It kind of melded into competition. I think the kids kind of understood what that meant a little bit better. Wednesdays were unity, which I always thought I was creative because Wednesdays in the middle of the week, kind of pulling both of those days together. And then Thursdays was gratitude. Fridays was service. And so each day we really tried to, as a program, discuss a topic related to that or allow the kids to practice that in some form or fashion. And we had, pulled so many different, team building activities and just tried to give them opportunities to act those out as best they could and to understand them so that it could be rooted within their hearts and that we could see the fruit of that with our program. I would say now what I have taken on from the assistant athletic director role, and it's not something we have in writing, but I read The Road to Joy with Coach Drew, and they had just connected with that. That was a book that I read with my family, with my wife and kids that we would go to bed on. And just the idea of Jesus, others, yourself, it was such a simple concept. And it is something that I have utilized with my family, within my workplace. And it's such a simple guy, and it's a biblical concept, obviously. Doing to others as you'd have them do to you, love your neighbor as yourself, all of those biblical concepts. But it was so simple, but I loved the fact that it does bring joy when you live this out correctly. And when you flip it and you put yourself before everyone else, it doesn't work. There is no joy, and it's chaotic. I teased my son I don't rat him out, but if I'm ever having to deal with him, my youngest, he's awesome. But I'll say you're putting yourself first, and yourself, others, and Jesus. It spells Yaj. That makes no sense. It's not a word. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work, son.
And it's just a simple thing that we've utilized in our home that I would say I'm not the head athletic director, so that's not, but
Sure.
It would absolutely be our culture if that was something that I ever have the opportunity to do.
But what a great personal mantra to really run your day. If you have, I was talking with a coach and it seemed to be where we're discussing characteristics of great coaches. And I thought, man, those characteristics really are like culture of a program. The way that coach shows up every day in those 3 ways, I could imagine most programs would want that same thing with their players and with their practices and every day. So I think that there is a culture to our program, standards and pillars, but then there's got to be that personal mantra. Whether for some of us, it's I want to be dripping with urgency every day, squeeze everything out of every second. I want to be present. I want to where my feet are. But I think that the joy that Jesus, others, yourself, and loved his book too, and fun to see just the path that God took him through, at that place. And but I think that sets us up. It goes back to that gratitude piece. It just aligns us the right way.
That's right. That's right. And when you do that, everyone benefits from it because your heart is right, and you're going to be able to treat them the way they deserve to be treated, and everyone benefits from it. But as you said, when you have the pillars of a program, I think that's probably the most misunderstood piece of the quote unquote culture aspect that coaches try to implement. Is it's not just a set of words that we have on walls. You want their heart. And if you have their heart, they will do anything for you as a program. Those are the coaches that players want to connect with and stay in touch with. And that's the goal. Anybody can, to an extent, anybody can do what we're doing, just as a profession. There's a lot of guys that can, and women that can do what we're doing. But you want to leave a legacy that connects with them beyond just those 4 years. And so I would say as a coach, we worked very hard on that. And that started with surrounding with really good assistant coaches, because we all have our limitations as a coach. I have what I can see, and then beyond my periphery, I needed other people that did what I did not do really, really well. And so I was always blessed, especially as a head coach. I had that opportunity. I was always blessed to have great assistant coaches.
A golden nugget that you said was how you allowed them to practice the culture or to try to live it out. I think we're guilty of, I love the idea of having each day mean something. We take a week for each of our words that mean a lot to our program. So we kind of start off the school year that way, but then doing our very, very best to keep them active throughout. But I wonder how often we just say what humility is. And we use the same quote, but that's it. And then we just go right into basketball. But the ability to have them walk through what that looks like and means. And I think I've mentioned this quite a bit, but I think going through the culture breakers is a really good way. Well, how does humility not show up? How does it break down? You and a partner get together and discuss something. And coach, humility doesn't break down when we care more about our own points than the team. Oh yeah, that's really good. So how are we going to how are we going to handle that? If you're in the locker room and you hear one of your teammates, you're going to yell at them? You're going to just say, "Hey, quit being selfish," or you're going to take them one-on-one? And it's walking through that, being creative and connecting that culture to actual things that they can do and have them act it out. I think that's a really good nugget.
Yeah. And if you just are speaking something and they're not seeing it put into practice, and they're not having opportunities to put it to practice, and it's not going to set root. It's really not going to be what you hoped it would be. And you need this to show up from a athletic standpoint. You need this to show up in the heat of battle. You don't, I guess it's that quote of, you don't rise up in the moment, you sink to the level of your preparation. And that's part of it. You're going to default to who you are. And so that was always our goal. And I think from the coaching standpoint now, I'm on the side now where I'm coaching coaches, and I love that. I love connecting with them. I know where they are. You can just provide those words of encouragement, provide those resources to them, hopefully to make their job as simple as possible, as seamless as possible. And I think the district that I work in, we're really, really blessed that we have the resources to give them just about anything they could need. And so now I'm kind of get to be on that side of things.
Huge point, coach, about how we have to live out our culture. And I was reminded of this every home football game. One of the sports is they volunteer to work it. So we have a tunnel that kind of connects our campuses, so that we work the tunnel gate, we work the back gate, we work concession stands. And it would have been very easy to be like, guys, listen, I don't want to do this. I know you don't want to do this. I don't know why they can't do it themselves. I don't know why we have to do this as a basketball team. Why are we helping the football team? I don't know. And so, but here's the deal. We're going to get this done, and you just got to put your head down and you got to do it. And we're not going to complain about it. Very easy to take that approach to doing things that we don't want to do. But if humility is part of our core value or our standards, and it is something that I believe in, that I want to have show up in my life every day, then I have to frame it as we have the opportunity to help out our football team. And I can't wait to do it. I'm excited to see you guys there, and we're going to show joy. We're going to bring an attitude of gratitude and have fun and bring enthusiasm to everybody that walks in, so that whether it's our fans or opposing, we go through that. I think if we frame it that way, then we're living it out. It's so easy, Coach, to damage the message that the good message we're trying to send to our players.
No, you're right. You're right. We can undercut our own foundational values with
That's a better way of saying it.
we can do it with our words, with our attitudes. Kids pick it up. And
Yeah.
even the assistant coaches. I think your job as a head coach is to lead those assistant coaches to have that same mindset, because if they're echoing your culture, you can't always be in that room, and you've got to have other people. And then when it becomes a player-led team, and then they echo those same sentiments, now you're rolling. Now you're rolling, but it takes time. It takes time, and it takes a lot of effort. I think coaching is it's parenting. You're parenting other people's kids. You're mentoring other adults. It's the head coach role has a lot of responsibility, and it can't be taken lightly. And I think one thing, if I could go back and change anything, is I wish I understood this completely while I was a head coach still. I think it's now that I've stepped away 2 years, I've learned, and I've gotten to see some of the great coaches in our district and been able to just step back. And that's not something that's afforded to us when we're in the trenches as a head coach. Oftentimes, the ability to reflect and to step back. And that's something that I wish I could have done a little bit better.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.